Great skills again by him. Oh, marvellous goal by Lowdown.
Welcome to the Rangers Journey.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on when you're watching this. My name is Doug. You're watching the Rangers Journal, and this is the Lowdown, your bite-sized video on all things about our upcoming opponents, which in the League Cup this Sunday will be our rivals, Celtic. Both clubs obviously having pretty poor seasons by their standards thus far. Rangers only recently dragging ourselves back up into the top three under the new direction of Danny Rule. Celtic, of course, have imminently just lost Brendon Rodgers as their manager, as he has walked out, leaving them to put out the call to Martin O'Neill with Sean Maloney in the assistant's position. Flips the narrative a bit on this game. I think we were feeling pretty confident going into the game with Celtic's form dipping and ours slightly improving. Celtic also now potentially get that new manager bounce and have some new direction and some new focus with a new manager and new voices there to be listened to. They've already turned a slight corner, beating Falkirk 4-0 in a match which they utterly dominated. And so, as we come off the back of putting together our first back-to-back wins, this should be a really interesting tie with both teams, I think, going into it looking for the victory. I think we can be confident. We've done well against Celtic over the past year, in that sort of 4 to 5 games. They've not been able to beat us in a regulation time match. So we should be going into this, as I say, with every confidence to look to dominate, look to try and impose ourselves in a way that we really failed to do in the first legal form match of the season. So we'll have to see how things can pan out in that regard. Looking at the team's current form, as I say, both teams not in the greatest of form. Rangers managing, as I say, back-to-back victories for the first time this season, which, as we move into November, is really poor for us, obviously. Celtic have been back and forth with victories and losses, losing 2-0 to Dundee and 3-1 to league leaders Hearts in their penultimate game before beating, as I say, Falkirk 4-0. In terms of the league form, going into this League Cup tie, Rangers, as I say, have got ourselves back into third, with Celtic sitting second, 5 points in between us. So we've got ourselves scraped back into the conversation, at least at the top end of the league. And we need to try and now continue to put wins together. But of course, this League Cup match is for the chance to get into the final, with the opposing semi-final being Motherwell versus St Mirren. Both sides of the Old Firm would fancy themselves in that final to pick up the trophy. An early trophy can be massive in terms of installing confidence and giving a real push into the new year. So with both Rangers and Celtic being so poor thus far, I think both could really use that to kickstart their seasons. We want, obviously, that to be us in this instance and give a winning start to the Danny Rule era, similar to the way that Philip Clement managed to come in and win his first trophy, or his only trophy, in the League Cup when he came in as well. It can be a way to kickstart the team, and so we can only hope that will be us that will get that opportunity. Obviously, we look at what to expect from teams coming into matches. That'll be a little bit difficult in this, or it's a little bit more difficult in this regard, because obviously Celtic bringing in a brand new manager. Martin O'Neill has not managed the team in over 6 years since he was last with Nottingham Forest, a position he only held for about 5.5, 6 months. So I don't know exactly whether his football philosophy has changed at all in the interim years that he's been watching the game. Obviously, he will have Sean Maloney as his assistant, so there's likely to be input in there. Sean Maloney has got more recent experience in the coaching game, so I'm going to see, obviously, how that will pan out. We've only got really that Falkirk game to go from. In terms of tactics, I've sort of looked at what O'Neill's traditionally liked to have in his teams. So like I'm playing a 4-3-3 at the moment, and traditionally Neil likes to have fullbacks providing us with the 4-3-3. Will do that, and the fullbacks were busy in that Falkirk game. He'd stay narrow out of possession, forcing opponents wide, and relying on centre-backs to clear crosses. O'Neill always liked to have a very physical team, in particular his centre-backs and attacking players or strikers were always physical, well-built, able to battle and I'm sure that's something he'll look for in his players in this temporary period with the team as well. Obviously, depending on how long he's there, he may not necessarily be involved in any purchasing. And if he is to be an interim manager, then it's probably unlikely he gets that far. So he will be working with the players he's got. And Celtic do have a number of injuries at the moment going into this game, which means that they will be without the likes of Cameron Carter-Vickers, Jota, and potentially Kelechi Iheanacho, who is a doubt for this match. Dyson Maeda is only just back from injury as well, who obviously they would often play up front. So a few injury worries for them in that regard, and we'll touch on what that might mean in the next section as well. He does like to usually move the ball quick, often bypassing midfield when he'll attack. As I say, he likes powerful strikers, and his midfielders tended to be more industrious rather than creative. Well, he does have some players who I think can fit both of those molds for him in his midfield. O'Neill's sides often thrived in transitional moments, looking to break aggressively and overturn, as well as being dangerous from set plays with those sort of tall and strong players we mentioned earlier. So I think we'll likely see tenets of that again. Celtic will play, a strong game. They'll probably look to impose themselves, and obviously coming in with a renewed confidence of a new manager potentially will provide new questions for this Rangers team to answer. In terms of their danger men, the obvious one is Benjamin Nguyen, who's continued to be a big player for them. Coming into his own, he's got 5 goals and 2 assists. Thus far this season, he can play across the attacking area. He can play up front. They just did play on the left side of their mid-3. Rating has been really good so far this season with a 7.7 from FotMob. And you can see there from his percentiles, he's creating chances. He's getting loads of touches on the ball. He's shooting and getting goals. So he's really an all-action player, and someone who is potentially likely to get a move at some point in the future if he continues to play the way he has been. So he's definitely going to be someone we'll need to keep an eye out for. The second player I've highlighted is someone that perhaps I wouldn't have been highlighting were it not for injuries, but Johnny Kenny, a young 22-year-old player who's come into the fold recently. Got 2 goals against Falkirk, which may play him into the team for the game at the weekend. As I say, Dyson Maeda, who they may have played through the middle, otherwise coming back from injury, did come on against Falkirk, so they may look to start him in the game, as obviously he's had reasonable success in Old Firms different times. But as I say, Kenny is a player that we might see, if not straight away, then potentially from the bench. As I say, as he will be riding a wave of confidence at the moment, and it's kind of their Finlay Curtis. But as I say, whether or not we actually see him will potentially depend on how Maeda is doing with his injury. But a player that will be high in confidence and going into a game like this could be increasingly dangerous. In terms of Rangers 11, they were playing the back 3 thus far, and that's likely to continue. He's probably, I would imagine, will bring Tavernier back in for his experience. Tavernier does also, as much as he has a bit of a mixed record against Celtic in terms of obviously being up against Maeda, who's been a trouble player for him. Tavernier is one of the few players who also consistently gets goals and assists against Celtic. So, a likely player to be in there for his experience and his set plays and free kicks, which have proved successful. Magoma really excelled in that first half against Hibs before he got his booking and was started to be targeted. The manager, I think, was a clever move to take him off and make sure he's able to be free for this game, as I think, again, he could prove to be a really good attacking foil. He's looked much better with the 3 and Cornelius behind him in the wing-back position. And then I think the right side really depends on whether he wants to be more attacking or defensive. If he wants to be more attacking, then I think Gassama comes back in on that right-hand side to be more of the attacking force. Potentially, he could bring in Aarons and play Aarons there and be a bit more defensive. So we'll need to see what he decides to do. But I think I would like to see Gassama come in, try to be attacking. When we played against Hibs, we very much focused our attack down the left-hand side with Magoma pushing up, and Aarons kind of just stayed and dropped, making a bit of a back 4 when we were further up on the ball, giving us a kind of a 4-3-3 when we were in possession. I perhaps would like us to see, as he go attacking, go and try and really push and go on the front foot and be a bit more of a 3-5-2 rather than a 5-3-2, and have both Migoma and Gassama causing trouble, so that Celtic don't really know which side to focus on, and so we give their push back their fullbacks and reduce their width by being more aggressive, so that they have to fall back in order to defend. Conor Barron, who played excellently against Hibs, did pick up a yellow card and so is now suspended from this game. I think Diomande is likely to potentially come in. Diomande tends to raise his game against Celtic, as does Raskin, so we'd hope the two of them will come in, have a good game. I've got Asgard coming back in. I think he's probably rested him for this game. Again, he's improving slightly since Rule has come in, but Moore played well in the games in the time he's come on. So there's every possibility he potentially perseveres with him, but I think in such a big game, such a key match, maybe Asgard being that little bit older, having that little bit more experience might be the better nod. Danilo, I think, has played himself into the team, obviously with 2 goals in 2 games now. He's looking bright, he's looking enthusiastic, he was having a great time with his dad at the Hibs game, so I think he'll be full of confidence. He's got a reasonable record against Celtic, 2 goals in 4 appearances, which isn't bad given his injury issues. So I think he plays himself into this match. And then I'd probably start with Miovski, who I think played well in that 0-0 game against Celtic, and could be the right type of striker to spin in behind their defenders and cause trouble. Chermiti has been up and down. Obviously, he's got his goal, which is a good start. With Hibs, he was okay, but not the greatest. So I think maybe we start with Miovski and look to potentially bring Chermiti on, obviously, later on in the game. Though, depending on the fullbacks, the centre backs that Martin goes with, he might choose for Chermiti for the strength that his bigger frame allows. So it's a bit of a toss up between the two, I think, and we'll see what Role picks on the day. But Danilo, I think, for me anyway, has got to be a certain starter for this match. If we're looking at a game changer for the match, I think the only answer to that question is Jack Butland. On the Journal and our members only show, we just voted him, or the members just voted him, our player of the month for the 3rd month in a row. He's been excellent. Obviously, his penalty save saves us that 3 points against Hibs. His 6th save in 7 penalties, which is a fantastic record. Gives us real confidence, I think, going into this game in terms of obviously the possibility of the game going to penalties if a stalemate is maintained through 90 minutes and extra time. I think that gives us a real confidence going into that, knowing Butland has been so switched on for penalties. But I could see him obviously having a big say in the game, making a few key saves. Both keepers probably going to prove to be important in the match, but Butland is on form right now, doing well. And so hopefully that will continue, as if it wasn't for Jack Butland, we'd be in a much worse position than we are already. So he's a real key player in that regard. In terms of my predictions for this match, as I say, I think we can be confident. Celtic a little bit behind us in terms of the new manager settling in. O'Neill's only had that one game, whereas Rule is now into, this will be game 4 for him. So Rule hopefully has a little bit better grasp of things. And as I say, Rule has proven really adept at switching things up and adapting to in-game issues. So I hope that will prove to be a good sign for going into this match. I think we can be confident. We're getting our swagger back slowly. We're getting a bit of our fight back slowly, a bit of confidence back. And so I'm going to predict 2-1, 2 Rangers. Potentially, maybe that goes to extra time. But as I say, I'm going to say 2-1 will come out victorious and get to that League Cup final against either Motherwell or St Mirren. And as I say, hopefully go on to win the competition completely. But one step at a time, as Rule's mantra has been. 2-1 is what I hope we'll see. So best of luck to everyone watching, and hope your team wins. You've been watching the Rangers Journal. We post 5 days a week, and over the weekend as well. Pre and post match content before every match the Rangers play, as well as extra stuff for members and things like tactics videos and this Lowdown. So please subscribe if you're enjoying the content, and hit that notification button to be told whenever we go live, as I say, which is 5 days a week minimum. Just a bit shout out to our sponsor as well, Bluebell's Bar at Puerto del Carmen at Lanzarote. If you're ever out in that direction, give them a look out if you're looking for a good blue bar, and tell them that Rangers Journal sent you, and you might get a little cheeky surprise or extra with your order as well. Thanks for watching. My name's been Doug. You've been watching The Lowdown. This is the Rangers Journal, and just remember that every night is a Rangers Journal night. Cheers.
Every night is the Rangers Journal night.